Looks like Instagram's not going to function properly. Instagram. We may have problems today. Look at this. My device just broke on me. Wonder why you're breaking, device. That's not good. Well, Instagram, this is not going to be the best viewing experience for you. You're going to need to go to youtube.com/pokercoaching. It'll be a much better viewing experience, I'm sure. Let's see. How do we even get this phone to stick right there? Normally don't even do this show on Instagram anymore because I like to be able to show my screen to you if I feel inclined. All right, well, there you go. There you go, YouTube or Instagram. Today the nanny called in, so I'm all hot and sweaty. I've been playing with the children all morning. It's a lot of fun. Whenever something throws a wrench in your plans, like today, I was just going to grind hard on 2 projects I've been working on. Now I'm going to take care of the kids. And, well, you have to view that as a blessing, not as a, oh man, my day got screwed up. View it as, instead, I get this day with my children. So enjoy it. Make good use of it. And don't be sad about nonsense, because at the end of the day, there'll always be time for work. Today, we're going to be discussing playing live poker for the first time. This is a topic one of you recommended. A lot of people have been playing online poker recently. A lot of people who are new to poker have been playing online poker recently. And they are going to be going into the live casino for the first time at some point in the future. Now, I don't know if that's going to be immediately or if that's going to be in a year. But, we might as well go ahead and discuss that and the differences between live and online poker. So whenever you go to play online, you navigate to a poker tournament, you register, and it just starts, right? So that's fine and good. Or you go to a cash game. You get on the list, you get put in the game, you're good to go. Nice and easy. Nothing really difficult about that. But when you play live poker, what happens when you walk into the room? Well, essentially, you have to figure out what you're trying to accomplish and where you're trying to go. So, if you're going to go play cash games, you need to go to the cash game desk. Usually there's a desk somewhere where you walk in and you get on a cash game waiting list. Usually it's a podium right in the front of right in front of the room. Every once in a while it's a tournament cage or something like that. Like I know if you go to Borgata, they actually have multiple desks. If you go to Borgata and you walk in, right on the right is this like cage looking thing, but it's not really a cage. It's more of a giant welcome desk. He says, where did he go? Some of you may not be able to see me. I'm not sure what's going on, but I think we're here. We're live. It says 0 drop frames. Click refresh. So you walk in, find the podium, and get on the list for the game you want to play. If you want to play, let's say 1-2 no limit, tell them you want to be put on the 1-2 no limit game. You may be surprised at your casino they have 1-1 no limit, or they have 1-3 no limit, or something like that. So they may not have the specific game you're looking for, but they'll have a game that's close enough. If you're confused, just ask the person at the podium what games you have that are kind of like 1-2 or something like that. If you want to go play no limit hold'em, do not think that you should go play limit hold'em because that's available. Just because the games exist does not mean that you have to play it. Looks like my kids beat me up today. They really did. Mr. Thomas is getting strong. We wrestled all morning. That's why I'm all hot and sweaty. So you go there, you get on the waiting list, and then you have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait a lot. This is why it's important to be somewhat flexible in the game you would like to play. So let's say you want to play, 1-3, and at your casino they have 1-2, 1-3, and 2-5. You may want to get on the 1-2, the 1-3, and the 2-5 waiting list ahead of time. That way, like let's say you want to play 1-3, and the 1-3 list is 40 people long. Who knows how long it's going to take you to get in that game, right? So in that scenario, you would rather play 2-5, which is slightly bigger than you'd like, or 1-2, which is slightly smaller than you'd like, while you're waiting for your 1-3 game. Now, to be fair, if you get in a 1-2 or a 2-5 game and it's just like exorbitantly soft, then you're going to want to stay in that game, right? You don't have to go play your quote-unquote ideal game just because it's open. Ideally, you want to instead play the game that is ideal, right? And that's another reason to be somewhat flexible in the games you play, because let's say the 2-5 game is soft, but it's a little bit bigger than you'd like to play. It's probably just worth it to play, especially if the 1-3 and the 1-2 are not especially great. Your brain thought Jonathan Little was vlog poker live. Now keep dreaming. Vivian, I have no clue what you're saying. Get your coffee. This is called Little Coffee. We do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bright and early. Listening to your show improved your mindset tremendously. You turned 11 into 1,400 this weekend. Ship it, Louis Philippe. Every weekend you win. I mean, eventually you're going to have to be done with your business and just play poker all the time. Do they allow smoking in live poker casinos? Not in most casinos. None in America, as far as I know. In Europe, you may find some, but for the most part, no. If you are watching this on Instagram, this is a rarity. I was streaming with this device to hold up the phone, but it broke, which is why you're kind of off center today. And I'm paying attention to this camera because we have literally thousands of people watching here and 12 people watching here. So sorry, Instagram, for getting neglected. Always watch this at youtube.com/pokercoaching. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bright and early, 9 a.m. Okay? You'll have a much better experience than every show goes there. Sometimes we review poker hands. Sometimes we review a PowerPoint that I present that you will not be able to see on Instagram because Instagram does not support streaming and whatnot. So leave Instagram, go to youtube.com/pokercoaching. Okay. All right, so you walk in and you get in a cash game list. If you want to play a tournament, you're not going to go to the podium most likely. You're going to go to the cage where people buy in to get chips, where people buy into the tournament. Usually there's a dedicated tournament window in a larger casino where if you want to go and register for the tournament, you go to specifically that window. Let's say you know the tournament starts at 2 o'clock, show up a little bit before 2 o'clock, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, so go there, you give them your money, and then at 2 o'clock, go to whatever table they tell you to go to. The tables are somehow ordered by number. You'll figure it out. If you can't figure it out, ask a floor person. They'll be walking around usually wearing a suit or a uniform of some sort. Ask them where table number 53 is, and there you go. You've been to some mid-sized Southwest Native American casinos that have smoking. Yeah, so like any casino licensed and regulated by the United States government does not allow you to smoke, but the Native American casinos, they have their own regulatory boards, et cetera, and they can do whatever they want. All right. That said, like you do not have to put up with smoking in the casinos if that's not what you want to do. Okay, so anyway, whenever you do get to go to a cash game table, you usually just go to the table and trade your dollars for chips at the table. Usually the dealer will have a tray of chips in front of them. Some casinos may make you go to the cage first to get money. I usually just go to the cage first and get money while you're sitting there and waiting. Like say you need $200 in chips, go to the cage. You can even tell them you're playing 1-2 because they're going to say, what do you want? And then you have to know that you want, let's say, $100 in red chips, which are $500 or $5 each. 5 times 20, which is a stack, is 100, and then you would get a rack of white chips, which would be $101 chips. That's $200. So that's that. So when you actually are playing, you get to the table, you get your chip stack. How should you stack that chip stack so that you don't screw something up? Well, the optimal way to do this in my mind, there's really only one good way to do this, is to take the big denomination chips, put them on the far left or the far right, depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm left-handed, I put them on the far left, okay? So I have the biggest denomination chips on the far left, then I have the smallest denomination chips on the far right, okay? So what happens is I know if I want to be putting small amounts of chips in, I'm dealing with this pile on the right. And if I want to be putting large amounts of chips in, I'm dealing with this pile on the left. This will make it very hard for you to make a mistake by putting in the wrong amount. What you don't want to do, which I see lots of fish do, is they'll go, like let's say they start in a tournament and they give you 8 25 chips, 8 100 chips, I don't know, 5 500 chips, and a few 1,000 chips, right? They'll just put them all in one big pile. And sometimes they'll even shuffle them up and just have a mix of nonsense. Then they have to dig through their stack every time to find what they want to bet. That's asinine, okay? You want to put the thousands on the far left or the far right, depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed, then the 500s, then the 100s, then the 25s. And then don't touch the ones on the far left, because if you touch the chips on the far left, you're liable to be putting in loads of chips, right? So you want to make sure you don't induce yourself to make stupid errors. Okay? Don't induce yourself to make stupid errors. Again, people on Instagram complaining I'm not looking at you. I already told you, go to youtube.com/pokercoaching. I'll be looking at you. All right. So you have your chips, you have them in front of you. Now we're going to start playing poker. When you show up, you may not be in the blinds or on the button, depending on what the casino requires you to do. Most casinos require you to post the blinds before you get dealt in cash games. Some do, some don't. In tournaments, you sit down, you're usually just dealt in the vast majority of the time. So, if you have to wait for the blinds or post a big blind, which means you post your big blind out of turn, like let's say from the cutoff or from the hijack seat or from under the gun, you usually don't want to do that. The wise play is to usually just wait. Okay? So you wait until the blinds are on you, then you put in the big blind when it's your turn to be in the big blind. Now, this may mean that you're not going to be playing poker for like 5 minutes. That's okay. Understand when you put that big blind in from out of position, you are just lighting that money on fire. You are literally torching it. So you don't want to do that. So you must wait. You must wait. If your casino offers the option to buy the button, that is where you show up to the table. You're supposed to be on the button. Yeah, you're supposed to be on the button. What you do is you put in the small blind and the big blind. The small blind goes into the pot dead. The big blind is sitting in front of you. So now you're on the button with $10 or with one big blind in front of you. Small blind's in the pot dead. That's not so disadvantageous because putting money in dead on the button, or putting money in on the button, is way better than putting money in from, let's say, the low jack seat or something like that. It's fine. Like you're not torching money too hard doing that. You're also not torching money too hard posting the big blind in the cutoff specifically, but from the earlier positions you really don't want to do that. It's really, really bad. And in reality, you should probably just wait until it's your big blind. Okay? And the reason for that is because whenever you put money in with a blind hand, you're losing your money. Putting money in blind is bad. That's where you lose all your money. If you look at the win rates of poker players, basically every poker player wins from all the positions besides exactly the small blind and the big blind. And that's because you have to play way more junk from those spots. When you buy the button, don't you do it from the small blind position, then you get the button the next hand. Maybe you do. Maybe you do? I don't know. I haven't played live poker in quite a while where we're playing cash games like this. Maybe you're right, Mark. You could definitely be right about specifically this. Mark says when you buy the button, don't you do it from the small blind? That way you get the button next hand. I think that might be right. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, whatever buying the button is fine. Buying the button is acceptable. Posting in the cutoff is acceptable. Earlier positions, don't do it. So now we're actually dealt in. We're dealt in. We're playing hands. Someone already asked the question, how long do you have to act? Well, you have to act within a reasonable amount of time. And a reasonable amount of time is often dictated by what other people do in your games. But I would generally tell you that you want to go kind of quickly, right? You don't want to sit there and take forever. When my wife plays, she's a very diligent human. And she goes kind of slow. And it's kind of annoying for people who are playing with her. And I tell her, look, you just got to go faster. I don't even know what she's thinking about. And because she doesn't even know what to think about. She's just thinking about something, but she doesn't know what to think about. Because she's not a professional poker player, right? And you do need to go in a timely manner. I definitely suggest you learn to play pre-flop reasonably well, right? Like if you have been playing cash games online or tournaments online, hopefully you have some idea of what reasonable pre-flop strategy looks like. So when you get the 7-3 offsuit under the gun, you don't have to think, let me look at my little chart. Is 7-3 offsuit on this little chart? You know it's not on the chart, right? You fold. So move forward with your life and don't go slowly unnecessarily. You do not want to be stalling to some extent. I mean, the only time you want to go somewhat slowly is once you get to like the flop, the turn in the river. But pre-flop, you really should be going relatively fast. On the river, I mean, you're allowed. It's socially acceptable to take 30 seconds to a minute on a relatively meaningful decision. And if you happen to go too slowly, people will call the clock on you, which means the tournament director or the floor person is going to go over and say, has this person had a reasonable amount of time to act? The dealer will say yes or no. It's probably yes. And they'll give you something like 30 seconds to act or a minute to act. And then they'll look at a clock. Once you have 10 seconds left, they'll tell you, all right, they'll count you down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 at most places. And then your hand's dead if you don't do anything. It means you fold. You fold if you do not make an action within that allotted time. If you get the clock call on you regularly, you're probably doing it wrong because that means people are not enjoying playing with you and they don't like that, right? You want to make your opponents enjoy playing with you and you're going to find that's going to be a more enjoyable experience for just everyone across the board. What are my thoughts on Caesars being bought by Eldorado Resorts? I have no clue. Don't even know what Eldorado Resorts is. Okay. Can you have charts at the table? Yes, you can have things out in front of you. I would not recommend that. what I do is I will have the poker coaching app. If you're a poker coaching member, we're going to have a sick new app coming out for you soon that has over 10,000 pre-flop charts in it. At least that'll eventually be there. So you can have that out on the table. Now, you don't want to have it like out looking at it during the hand. You're not supposed to be on your phone while you're playing a hand. However, you can look at the chart before the hand and then turn the phone over and not look at the chart during the hand. That is perfectly fine. That is A-okay. And I definitely suggest you do that. I mean, whenever I'm playing a shallow stack scenario, like say I have 8 big blinds, you can be very confident. I have that 8 big blind shove or fold chart out in front of me to make sure I do not make any stupid mistakes. Because if you make stupid mistakes, it costs you money, and there's no reason to be egotistical and think, oh, I know my 8 big blind shove chart perfectly. And to be fair, I probably know it better than literally everyone in this chat. But even then, I might not know it, right? And, citing possible, right? If somebody's on their phone during a poker hand, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And especially in today's world, it's straight up against the rules. I'm shocked that would even be socially acceptable in any casino. Funny enough, one of the publishers at D&B Poker is a very good chess player. And when he walked into a live poker tournament for the first time, he could not believe that everyone was just sitting on their phones at the table. It's like, are all these people just like looking at programs the whole time? Like, no, they're texting people and watching Nicki Minaj videos on their Instagram account. And it's like, that's what people are doing on their phones. It doesn't make sense, right? It's like nobody actually cares. Nobody's taking this seriously. But, nowadays, you're not allowed to do it whenever you are playing in a hand. And if you are in a hand, you should look. If you're in a hand and somebody picks up their phone and starts fiddling with it, look at the dealer and say, WTF, right? Okay, so we're in the seat, we're playing, we got our hands dealt, we're in the game. There are a few things that could potentially happen. So the first is that you may accidentally act out of turn. A good way to do this is, a good way to not act out of turn, because you're not supposed to act out of turn, that is not good, is that you need to pay attention to who has cards, okay? You know where the button is. You've played poker a little bit online. You know the person to the left of the dealer goes first. Is that you? Well, the answer is obviously no, that's not you. If there's somebody with cards between you and the button, right? So in this scenario, you know it's not your turn. So pre-flop, when someone raises and you call, you already know you're going to be in position. You are not acting first after the flop, okay? You're not, period. So pay attention to that person. They're going to make their decision, and then it's your turn, right? Don't get excited. A classic tell that a lot of people have, even very good players, is that they will act out of turn when they get overly excited. When are they overly excited? It's when they have the nuts or when they have aces. So often, it's amazing. You go play a live poker series where you have a bunch of recreational players, like let's say the World Series of Poker. You go there, you sit down, like 10 hands into the day, somebody will just announce raise and put in a big amount of chips from middle position before it's their turn to act, right? It's on under the gun. Under the gun's just looking at their cards. They're like, middle position says raise and piles in money. Like, yeah, you have aces. And they have aces, 95% of the time, maybe more. The other 5% is kings. So, these people got super excited and they just put their money in out of turn. They can't help themselves. So, don't fall for that one. But you want to make sure you are acting in turn. If you ever have any doubt, if it's on you, ask the dealer. Say, is it on me? In a calm, relaxed manner. Don't say, is it on me? I'm ready to bet my good hand. Or don't say, is it on me? I plan on checking behind. Right? Is it on me? You ask the dealer will say yes or no. And usually it's on, like if everybody's kind of looking at you and it's been a little while, like let's say 10, 15, 20 seconds, and most of the people are looking at you, or the dealer's looking at you, or your opponent's looking at you, it's a chance it's on you. If everybody's looking at somebody else, odds are it's that person's turn. Now, funny enough, when you're in a poker hand, you don't really want to be looking at the person who, like say someone makes a bet and now it's my turn. You don't really want to be paying attention to me, right? Like the opponent, the people, if you're observing this game, you want to be paying attention to the guy who made the bet, because the person who made the bet is the one who has already shown a significant amount of interest in this pot, and figuring out what that person is doing is very, very important. Because for all you know, the caller, the person who's facing the bet, can just very easily fold and you don't learn anything whatsoever. But if you can pick up a read on the person who already made the bet, that is going to be very, very beneficial. You had to come here because the stream is down on Twitch. Well, that's not good. Whatever. We'll figure it out for next time. Okay, let's say you accidentally expose a card. This can happen in various ways. The most common way this happens is it's not actually your fault. The dealer will be dealing the cards, and a card will kind of flash on its way over. You know, the dealer's dealing the cards like this, and maybe a card flashes up like this on its way over. And if the card does this on its way over, grab that card immediately, turn it face up, and say, this card flashed. You want to be a sicko live pro? If it's an ace, take that card and keep it. Any other card, though, you have to muck it. You're like, you should muck every card in reality. But if like, I mean, look, you want to go super high level. If you don't, I mean, even if you think people see it, if you think people see an ace and you're like shallow stack, it just doesn't matter. There's nothing they can do. Anyway, if the cards are dealing like this and one of them flashes just a little bit, take it, turn it face up, and say, this card flashed. Period. Don't ask your neighbor, hey, did you see the card? Don't trust the people who are trying to take your money to tell you the truth. Okay? They may be the most perfectly ethical people in the world. Don't trust them to tell you the truth. If the card flashes, period, turn it out. And if you have a dealer who's often like throwing the cards like this, like they do at a blackjack table sometimes, say, excuse me, can you keep the cards lower? And they either will or they won't. If they don't, tell the floor person, say, look, every time I can see literally every card that's being dealt. Now, if you can see every card that's being dealt, is it your responsibility to tell people that you can see their cards? That's actually a tough question because I'm not sure. Ethically, I think you should the first time or two. After that, I don't really think it's your fault. If, like, let's say your opponent's looking at their cards and they always pick them up like this and look at them to where, like, you're sitting right here, you can clearly see it. You just say, hey, I can see your cards. They're like, oh, okay, thanks. Then they do a little bit better. After a while, they may do it again. Say, hey, I can see your cards. They do it again. They start showing them to you again. I mean, what are you going to do, right? You can't just sit there and consistently tell someone you can see their cards if they are literally going to show them to you every single time. I know that may be slightly off of what some people do. Some people may never tell them. Some people may tell them once. Some people may tell them literally every time. I was taught by my grandmother how to play rummy as a child, and she would never tell you. She would just look every time. All right. Going back to stacking your chips, you are supposed to have your highest denomination chip stacks or chips clearly visible, not buried underneath other chips. I can go various ways when it comes to this. Typically, if you have a lot of big denomination chips, like let's say you have 500 chips, 1,000 chips, 100 chips, and 25 chips, it's generally acceptable to have all your 500s and 1000s in one pile, and I actually like kind of doing that, putting the 1000s in the bottom so that you like really don't touch them. Again, it's such a disaster for you to put in the wrong amount of chips. That said, as long as you don't have like multiple denominations of chips, it's not really that big of a deal just to have like 4 stacks of chips in front of you. The problem comes is whenever you have like a 25,000 chip, a 5,000 chip, 2 1,000 chips, 2 500 chips, 8 100 chips, and 8 25 chips. They just have like this 6 or 7 wide row of 2 chip high stacks, right? That's kind of ridiculous. So I think in that scenario, it is socially acceptable to have your big stacks all in one pile. They may tell you to put the big chip out front or something like that. Just listen to whatever dealer says. Don't be annoyed. Have you heard of people being able to see cards in reflected sunglasses? Or non-reflected sunglasses? Or regular glasses? No. I mean, if you take the cards like this and look at them like this, yeah, but that's not how it works. I guess I should have found a link to this blog post. There's some blog posts where I show you how to look at your hand. Basically, you take your cards like this on the table. Imagine the table's flat. Instagram, sorry again, you're getting a little low end of stick here. You take the cards like this. Here's the cards. You take them, and then you peel the corner of them. You see how the cards are not like actually off the table? If I do it like this, obviously the table would be here, so this would be flat, right? So you take them, you peel like this, and you look at the corners of them if you're left-handed. If you're right-handed, you have to do this number. The cards have to be this way instead of this way. You see? I clearly did not prepare ahead of time. Anyway, you want to make sure that literally only you can see in this little tent. You want the cards buried in the tent. If there are people watching your game, sometimes it's actually kind of hard to conceal your cards to everyone besides specifically you, especially if you're a little bit taller. If you're short like I am, you don't have this problem because like you don't have to lift the cards all that high. But imagine if you're like sitting way up here like this because you're just tall. Well, now what do? You have to stick the cards way out here to look at them, or you have to like peel them way up. If you're tall, you may actually need to pay attention to this. I would definitely recommend that everyone practice looking at cards at a table next to a real friend who will tell you honestly if they can see your cards from any position around you or any position behind you. Okay? You need to get experience of that. If your opponents can see your cards, you're going to get demolished. Period. If they can see your cards, do not expect them to tell you, and you will get crushed. Now, if you are in a hand and somehow you show your own card, like say you're in the middle of the hand and the cards have been dealt, you look at your card and somebody like peel it up and the Queen of Spades flips up, right? I mean, that's just kind of on you, and you should be folding the vast majority of the time, because if your opponents know even one of your cards, that's not good. Are they allowed to see our cards? Who is they? Would you recommend wearing sunglasses? Or are you just going to look like a fool? So look, I used to wear sunglasses all the time. That wasn't really for my benefit. That was for my opponent's benefit, because whenever you're staring at someone, you don't really want them to know you're staring at them. That said, I don't generally recommend sunglasses. I think that they are especially good if everyone in your game is already taking the game very, 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 very seriously. Now, if they're not, you want to keep the game as casual and as fun as you can. That means no hoodies, no sunglasses, no headphones, right? That just means having a nice, casual, chill time with your opponents. Are your opponents allowed to see your cards? If you show them, don't show your opponents your cards. Now, if you have like horrible blinking tells or something, I mean, look, it's one of these things where like, do you care how you look at the end of the day if it's going to make you more money? It's tough. It's definitely tough. So Kathy talks about this thing called a string bet. All right, so let's say you're playing a tournament, somebody raises to 300, and now you want to re-raise. Okay? What is the correct protocol / safe protocol? What you're not allowed to do is put in 300 and then put in any more amount. You can't put 300 in and then go back to your stack and try to get more. The reason for that is because you can put in 300, get a read on your opponent, and then put in more or not put in more. It's called a string raise, right? So what you have to do is you have to put all of the chips you want to raise in the pot in one motion. So let's say you want to make it 900. You have to get all 900 in this like rough vicinity right in front of you and put all 900 in at the same time. Alternatively, you can say raise and then put in 300 and then put in however much on top in one motion. You can't put in 300 and then put in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. You have to put in 600 more. Put in 3 and then 6. That said, I know I've played at a casino before the quarantine. I forget exactly where it was, where you could no longer put in 300 than 600. So you have to put in the whole amount. And I would definitely recommend you get in the habit of just putting in the full amount without saying anything. I know some of you say you'd rather just say raise. I say raise so I can't screw up, etc., etc. In this situation, I like putting your chips in one motion without saying anything, because when you talk, when you announce a bet, when you announce a word, if your opponents are actually paying attention, they will be able to get reads on you. You want to do everything you can within reason to not let your opponents get reads on you. So let's say you want to make it 900. Don't say, raise to 900, dealer friend. Instead, put in 900, period. Okay? It's a little bit risky. It does require you to actually pay attention and know what's going on. It definitely requires you to know what is going on. I remember playing with someone one time and they had like headphones on and sunglasses. They were like bebopping to music. They're clearly an idiot, right? If you're sitting here at the poker table doing like this, and then every time it was on them, they would like look at their cards and they'd have to take their headphones off and ask the dealer, how much is the bet? Because they weren't paying attention at all. It was so frustrating and so annoying. And this person was just a stonefish, obviously. And in this scenario, that person made multiple mistakes. And I remember it was actually very funny. One time they didn't do this, and they just put in, I think they said raise. I think they actually did this. They said raise. They thought it folded them. They said raise. One of my children just sprinted by. 1 second. Oh, you're still here. I was so confused. Some little heathen just ran by. Somebody actually went all in front of them. Somebody went all in from early position for like a 10 big blind stack or something. They didn't see it because they were bebopping. And then they said raise, and they put in like 300 chips. The dealer's like, oh no, it's 1,000. They're like, oh no, I didn't see it. Well, you know what happens there is they now have to do a few things depending on the exact casino. This casino made them re-raise the minimum. So they had to put in 1,900. Because it was 50, 100 blinds. Let's say someone goes all in for 1,000. They have to raise to the raise amount on top. The 1,000 made it 900 more, so they have to put 900 on top of 1,900. Now they had to put in 1,900. Gets back around to somebody else. They went all in. Now this person folded their 1,900, and they were so angry. And you know whose fault it was? It was theirs, because they had their headphones and their sunglasses on, trying to be cool or something. I don't even know what they were trying to do. They were showing everybody they were an idiot. And they lost 1,900 chips, and they were angry. And they were angry at the dealer. They were angry at their opponents. But you know who they should have been angry at? Well, only themselves. So, always make sure you know what's going on. This is why you have to be paying attention. Turns out, if you wear sunglasses, sometimes it's a little bit hard to see. I understand there's some glasses you can see through way better than others. I definitely do not recommend very dark sunglasses. That's just really asinine. But I would not recommend sunglasses the vast majority of the time to pretty much anybody. So make sure you're aware of what's going on. Going back to like tournament rules, there are things like the Tournament Directors Association, the International Poker Association, etc., that have various rules that casinos do stick to. And sometimes these rules vary from casino to casino, from venue to venue, from series to series, etc. So you want to make sure you're aware of the rules that you are playing under. You may think, poker doesn't have that many rules, does it? Well, they actually have quite a bit of rules. Some of these rule books are 50 or 100 pages long. Interestingly enough, most games actually have very big rule books. And you want to make sure you're aware of what is going on and aware of protocol. For example, in some casinos, if someone puts in an all-in raise that is not a full raise amount, it's considered just a call. In other places, if they put in more than half of the raise amount, it's considered a raise. If it's less than half the raise amount, it's considered a call. You better know that ahead of time for which casino you're playing at, because it just might come up. Am I live now? Of course I'm live now. You think you get paid off more with sunglasses? This is a misconception. I don't know. I don't know. I would tell you to keep good data on it for you and all of your other friends who do this. I definitely do not know the answer to that, though, Louis Fleet. Certainly could be true, right? If your opponents think you're bluffing a lot for whatever reason, then maybe. It's only a legal bet if it crosses the betting line, says Art for Euro. A lot of casinos don't have a betting line. It's another issue. Some casinos have betting lines where you're sitting at the table, there'll be a line in front of you, and then there'll be other casinos with no line in front of you. And there's always this question of what determines what a bet is. Essentially, in most places, if you make a forward action, now what's a forward action? Kind of wishy-washy, right? If you make a forward action, it's considered a bet. Now, some people will try to do what's called an angle shoot. They'll try to angle you. They will angle shoot you and try to do something shady, like they'll push their chips forward and not actually put them in to try to get a read. Lots of old school live pros do this. I actually don't see a whole lot wrong with it, as long as it's not breaking the rule of the casino. If there's a casino that has a forward motion rule, can't do that. If there's a casino with a betting line, if your chips do not touch the other side of that betting line, that was not a bet. So make sure you follow the rules. Now, I like some rules way better than others. I definitely like the idea of a very clearly demarked betting line. That way it's very clear. But that's not the rules you're playing in under a lot of casinos. So, be aware of that. Some casinos have a betting line and it doesn't actually count. At Bellagio, for example, it counted for a while and then it stopped counting. Just like randomly overnight. So what would happen is the betting line's kind of crappy too, because let's say you want to put in 9 100 unit chips. You put in 900 and they kind of like slide into where 400 of them go past the betting line and 500 of them don't. What happens? Well, back in the day, it was as if 400 went into the pot. Then they decided to change it to like any amount that's kind of in that direction counts. But then the betting line doesn't count anymore. So it's like, what's the actual rule? In reality, look, don't try to angle shoot people. Don't be a douche. Play well within the rules of the game, and you're never really going to have a problem. While at the same time making sure you play, in a manner that protects yourself from other people who may be less ethical than you. Have you played live poker since the pandemic? No, absolutely not. When will live games return? They're already returned to some places. Okay. In some places, they have rules where if you're not in the seat when the first card is dealt off the top of the deck, your hand's dead. That may annoy you. Maybe you'll be on the standing up talking to your friend at the other table or something. You come back and your hand's not there. And you may say, where's my hand? Well, understand that's the rule of that casino. You may also find that in some casinos, the last card off the deck is when the hand is dead. You may find in some places, like in cash games, as long as you're back in your seat by the time it's your turn, you can keep your cards. So definitely make sure you are aware of the rules. That said, I would tell you to generally just kind of stay around your seat if at all possible, right? You should probably not be wandering around the room. You'll find some people in live poker tournaments, they'll just be wandering around chatting with people all day, and they'll get their hands mucked 4 or 5 times a day. Some of them get mad, some of them don't. But if you care about playing poker, why don't you stay at your seat, right? All right, let's talk now about changing tables. This is going to, we're only going to talk about cash games. You can select your table to some extent in tournaments using various live pro tricks. The one live pro trick I'll tell you to get a good seat in a tournament is to buy in when the satellite qualifiers buy in, assuming there are satellite qualifiers, because satellite qualifiers typically are playing substantially bigger than they're used to in the main event, or the tournament they satellited into, and often they're also used to playing a different structure than a regular tournament, which usually leads to them being not quite as good at tournaments as tournament players. Obviously, some satellite players will be good. In my experience, the vast majority of them are not. You'd much rather play with them. Okay, so let's discuss seat selection. So when you go to a casino, you get in a game, let's say you're playing a 1-2 game. At your casino, there may be 4 or 5 or 8 1-2 games happening at that time. Okay? So now, you get seated at a table. This may be what's called a must-move game, and what happens is you're going to be in this game until a seat at another table opens up, then you'll get put in one of those tables. You have no other way to change tables. Or this may be a main game where you're here until you're done or you want to move. If you're at a must-move table, just chill and don't worry about it. If you're at a main game, though, you should be put on the table change list. Usually there's a list of people who would like to change tables if they feel inclined. You always want to get on the list, period. Why? Because the other tables may be better than your table. You do not have to change seats if you get on the table change list. If it's your turn to change tables and your table is good, then stay there, right? But if your table's bad, or if you know the other table is especially good because they're having a party over there, then you definitely want to move, right? If you have Mark Levin and Louis Philippe over there, get up and go over there because you know it's going to be a party, right? But if you have a bunch of super nits wearing sunglasses and headphones and they fold every time everybody raises and there's just like no action at your table, you probably want to move. So you want to be aware of what is happening at your specific game and ideally what's going on at the other games. So be aware of that. Now, how aggressively should you change tables? I think you probably should change tables pretty aggressively. It's going to be different advice for changing seats, though. When you get to your table, you typically want to get what's called a seat change button or get on the seat change list. Sometimes it's based on seniority, who's been at the table the longest, or sometimes it's going to be based on who just said they wanted to be on this list first. Okay? So if you're on this list and it's your turn to change seats, you should ask yourself, is the available seat better than my current seat? And how much better is it? And if it's a lot better, you want to be changing seats. Now, you don't want to make it obvious that you're changing seats because the player that you're going to have position on is a super fish, right? You don't want to say, yeah, this guy's bad, so I want to sit next to him because he's bad at poker. And for that reason, you often want to come up with some sort of an excuse. You don't have to have an excuse, but you can have an excuse if it's obviously easy. Like, for example, if there's a game on the TV behind you, a TV show or a sporting event or whatever, say, yeah, I'll take it. I need to see this game. And then act interested in that game for the first 5 minutes when you get moved over there, right? that will make it way less obvious that you are being somewhat predatory and actively targeting the fish at your table. If the seat that you could change to is only slightly better, again, this is going to take some skill to figure out, which you may not have yet. But if the table is slightly better, or the seat's slightly better, I wouldn't worry about it. Same thing if you think your table's fine and the table over there seems fine, I wouldn't change. But if there's ever a big discrepancy between seats or tables, you very often should change. Can we talk about tipping a little bit? So tipping is a tough, touchy subject. In reality, any money you tip is money that comes out of your win rates. Okay? When you're playing live 1-2 no limit hold'em, you may pay something like $6, $7, $8, $10 in rake per hour. Maybe more, depending on your casino. So let's say you pay $10 per rake an hour. And let's say you know before a rake you're going to win, let's say $20 per hour, because you're pretty good at poker. That means you're going to make $10 per hour. The casino's already taken half your win rate. Now let's say you play 4 hands that you win in that hour and you tip $1 each hand. Well, now you're just giving away 40% of your income to the dealer, even though it's only $4. Do you want to be tipping away 40% of your income to the dealer? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you care about money, though, the answer is obviously no. So what's the right thing to do? What's the ethical thing to do? I don't know. I think in the very small stakes games, you really should not feel obligated to tip all that much. And I don't think any of the dealers should make you feel obligated to tip all that much. You'll see some dealers give you the stink eye if you do not tip them after winning any pot. Remember, I'd be playing like a random 2-5 game at the casino. Everyone would fold to me in the big blind. I'd collect the pot, and the dealer would be like, give you the stink eye. Hey, where's my dollar? You're like, I won $2, sir. I won literally $2 here, and you expect me to give you half of it. It's asinine, right? Understand that people are going to always be trying to take your money. They're going to try to extract value from you. And if you give it to them very, 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 very freely, then, that's on you. Mark says just tip $1 if the pot's bigger than stealing the blinds. I mean, again, sure, you can do whatever you want, right? But again, Mark, if you're playing 1-2 with that $10 an hour win rate, you're realistically giving away half your money. And I mean, if you care about moving up, probably don't want to be doing that. So anyway, you got to be careful with tipping too much. As you get to play bigger and bigger games, tipping $1 is like clearly negligible, right? Like if you're playing 5-10 no limit, you can tip $1 all day, every day. Because like let's say at 5-10 no limit, you're going to win $100 out the door. If you tip $10 per hour, $8 per hour, $4 per hour, it's 4, 5, 8%. But at 1-2, 1-3 limit games, you really got to be kind of nitty. Word of the day is asinine. Is that how you spell asinine? A-S-I-N-I-N-E, I think. Not ace 9. Ace 9 is a poker hand that's not particularly good. All right. Would you rather have people straddling to your left a lot or straddling to your right a lot? Both aren't particularly great. You really don't want people straddling on your right because that means your first act, presumably. If they're first act if you're first act every hand, that's really bad. If the people are straddling on your direct left, that's I guess fine. Because you're going to be in the cutoff every hand, and you have somebody putting in money that's dead. So you definitely want it on your left, right? If the person to your right straddling all the time, that's very, very good. What are my thoughts on people using heads-up displays on worldseriesofpoker.com? If it's against the rules and the terms and conditions of the site should ban those players and take all their money. If it's not against the terms and conditions, then whatever. I do believe it is against the terms and conditions, but as far as I know, WSOP.com, we'll just say, is not the most sophisticated poker site. Remember there was a dude streaming a while back and he had the illegal heads-up display on the site, just running no problem. Idiots. How do you keep track of bubble situations in tournaments? Pay attention. Very often there's 27 people getting paid or 8 people getting paid. Get up and look around the room and count the people, assuming the tournament director does not do a good job of it. What types of players do you want on your left and your right? You want the crazy people on your right, you want the weak type players on your left. Fired too many World Series of bullets, now you're severely under bankroll. Well, it sounds like you were gambling hard. You've been off. Don't gamble hard for no good reason, especially in high variance events like World Series of Poker tournaments where you're going to have a low return on investment and infinite variance. Bad play. You've been offered PLO staking. Why are you going to move from no limit tournaments to PLO? It makes literally no sense whatsoever. Especially if you're not good at it. Why not just go back to the no limit games and crush, right? Next time, don't give away your bankroll. Okay, what's the most I've ever tipped a dealer? I don't know. Oh, I do remember. One time I was at a cruise boat. I was on a cruise ship, and we were playing 3-6 limit hold'em. We played for like 4 hours. Nobody tipped the dealers anything. I won almost all of the money. The casino raked away half of it. And then I tipped the dealers like $400 at the end of the day because that was literally all the money. And so the casino/dealer took all the money. So that was nice. Yeah, Ultimate Grinder, that is definitely not good. I did not know that person, but a lot of people in my various chats knew them. What percentage of tournament should a tournament player like yourself expect to cash? Depends on what percentage of the field cashes, right? So let's say 15% of the field cashes, then, I don't know, maybe 18%, 20%. Most cruise games have poker rooms. No. Most do most cruise ships have poker rooms? Most cruise ships do not have anything besides a casino that has bad rules on all the games across the board. If they do have a poker room, it's usually a digital table or it's like a tiny stakes limit table that rakes infinite. You don't want to be playing it. Also, snap fade. Cashing is not really where you make your money. If you care about cashing a lot, you're probably a fish. Actually, some of the biggest losers in the game cash 25% of the time, but they very rarely win. You're going to find that most of the good players cash just a little bit more than the average cash rate, but they win the tournament and take second in the tournament and third in the tournament way more often than everybody else. Where are you? Sitting in my office. All right. What's beatable rake? It depends on the stakes. It depends on how bad your opponents are. Again, these are not great questions. What's better, cash or tournaments? These are not great questions. It depends on your life. Like, for example, say you're playing a 1-2 game with high rake. Let's say they rake $10 per hand, which is, well, a lot, okay? If you're playing this game, but everybody literally goes all in every hand for $200, you can beat that rake. Just sit there and be tight, right? But if you're playing in a regular game against reasonable opponents, there's nobody's going to beat a $10 rake. Say you're playing 25-50 no-limit hold'em, and they take $10 a rake per hand. You'll be able to beat that no problem because it's a tiny amount. You tip after you win a tournament. Tournaments now take 3% tip for the dealers and the floor people every single time in basically all major events. So if they already take 3% tip, should you feel obligated to tip on top? The answer is obviously no, right? It's like you go to a restaurant and they take 18% gratuity. Should you feel obligated to tip on top of 18%? Answers, obviously not. If they don't take any tip, then, maybe you should feel obligated to tip a little bit. Some casinos don't. Like I know in the past, Bay 101 didn't, and someone won and they didn't tip anything because they just presumed every casino took 3%, like literally all of them do. So that person caught flack. But even then, you should not feel obligated to tip. You don't have to tip if you don't want to tip. Do whatever you want. There's no obligation. So look, maybe I have a rough stance here, but in my mind, if you run a business, it's your job to pay your employees. You should not force your employees to hope for a handout. That's my opinion. I could be wrong about this. I would much rather everyone just be paid a fair salary by the owner of the business, and then the owner of the business perhaps charges more for various services, right? And generally thought that there's lots more corruption in places where tipping is allowed and socially acceptable compared to where it's not. Like in New York, they're doing away with tipping in a lot of restaurants now. And it's probably going to be a good thing long term. Like some countries have just completely banned tipping, and if you tip someone, it's thought to be shady and out of line. All right, I have to get going now. Those are a lot of thoughts on live poker. We actually have a cash game challenge happening right now. I know a lot of people play live cash games. They are definitely soft, definitely beatable. I highly recommend playing live cash games if you go to casinos. So check out the cash game challenge, pokercoaching.com/cash challenge. Louis Philippe said he's already loving it and doing great with it. Just started 2 days ago, so you can get in there and get caught up relatively quickly. Would you feel comfortable playing in a live casino again? What does comfortable mean, right? I actually did a show with Robbie from Card Player Lifestyle. It'll be live soon, and this was one of the questions: when are you going to go play live poker again? And the answer is something to the effect of, I just don't need to, right? So if I don't need to, and I think it's somewhat unsafe, I'm just not going to, right? That said, I think if you take substantial precautions, you wear a mask, you make sure the casino tests everyone's temperature, you use hand sanitizer, etc., 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 I think all of these things will ideally make you somewhat safe. Take good precautions. That said, do you want to be sitting in a closed environment with hundreds or thousands of people for multiple hours at a time, touching the same things that they are touching over and over and over again? Probably not, right? That said, I have a few students who are playing cash games a lot right now, and they are crushing it. Why? Probably because all the pros who are cash rich at the moment aren't playing, and you're left with just people who want to get their gamble on. So games are probably softer than ever. Just like online poker right now, super soft. One thing I've learned through this pandemic is that people love playing poker. They love it. And that makes me happy, because poker is a great game and it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see that despite whatever the world throws at us, the game will continue to grow and thrive and be something that people of all backgrounds can enjoy and have a great time at. So anyway, that's me for today. Again, check out pokercoaching.com/cash-challenge. Click like, click subscribe. Have a great day. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.